Y'all want to watch a Tubi original that had good production value and acting? It's called Cinnamon. At a gas station, Jody is so over her job and constantly looks at the time. Jody sees someone approaching, so she rushes to lock the door. However, the Temu Lil Nas X opens the door before Jody can lock it. He has a gun in his holster and asks for a pecan pie. Jody asks him to hurry up. Then a man with a helmet holds her at gunpoint and asks for all the cash in a plastic bag. He decides to grab the money himself, and Lil Nas X tries to sneakily save Jody. However, Motorcycle Man sees the gay man's reflection and shoots him dead and runs away. When he falls, he drops the cash, so he uses Lil Nas X's bag to carry most of it. Jody presses the alarm and the police have arrived. The owner, Wally, arrives and asks,
"Did they take everything?"
And Damon Wayans sounds goofy AF. When Jody goes home, she finds a bag of money and Eddie tells her not to move. Turns out Eddie was the man who robbed her. They both laugh as they were in cahoots. A few months ago, former high school classmates Eddie and Jody serendipitously see each other on a bus, and they head to a restaurant where they catch up. Jody shares that she feels like she's wasting her life because she aspires to be a singer-actress, but she's stuck starring in Tubi movies and working as a gas clerk. Eddie then shares that he's a crook. He straight up steals from anyone, including old people. After hearing Jody sing, Eddie's coochie starts purring. Then he brings Jody to the studio of his friend Big Back Romeo, where Jody tells Eddie and Romeo that her stage name is Cinnamon. Jody starts working on her music with Romeo, and she and Eddie soon fall in love. They even eat each other's salads. Eddie proposes to Jody that they move to LA to pursue music. He volunteers to be her manager, estimates that 30 grand will be enough for a year, and assures her that he'll take care of the funding. Jody agrees. After Eddie gets beaten by one of his victims, Eddie informs Jody that they're broker than when they started, prompting a frustrated Jody to suggest robbing Walker Gas and Food Mart because there's a lot of money coming in and out of it, at least $50,000. And her boss, Wally, usually leaves the safe unlocked so she can let the armored trucks pick it up. This way they can get more than the money they need, and Eddie won't have to pickpocket anymore. They do some practice robberies with a mask on, and Eddie kind of foined with it on. The night Eddie and Jody did the robbery, it turns out that Jody had warned Eddie with a tap to his shoe that Lil Nas X was coming. Both were responsible in the death of Lil Nas X. Eddie and Jody try to get rid of guilt by justifying Barney's death as an inevitable outcome when guns are involved. Despite feeling scared, Jody decides to work the next day to not look guilty, but plans on resigning due to fear.
Wally's got a card for you. Wally's got a card for you.
Before the robbery, James, who was Wally's gas station business partner, appeared at Wally's car lot emporium opening. In private, James is confused how Wally can afford this lifestyle when he broke. Wally told James that his girlfriend Heather paid for everything using her $120,000 inheritance from her dead grandmother. He convinced her to invest it in his business because she didn't know what to do with it. James congratulated him, then pulled out a check asking him to sell back the rest of his shares at the gas station because he already has another business. He added that he and his mom will forgive whatever he was not telling them if he sells his shares. When Wally told him that the amount in the check was less than half of his shares, James gave him the check with his middle finger. Shortly after looking at his overdue IRS and account statements, Wally got a call about the robbery, so he quickly drove to the gas station. Wally is horrified to see Lil Nas X's corpse and immediately calls James. The dead guy is Barney, who is James's brother. James arrives and quietly weeps, and when Wally tells him that the robber took everything, James immediately checks the pies. James gets angry and tells Wally that his mom won't be happy about it. He leaves, and Wally is left confused.
Why ain't mad at the pies, though?
A pizza delivery woman named Tony gives James his order at the morgue.
You know you want me.
Miss Big Back Girl is thirsty. James gives the pizza to his Mama, who became deaf later in her life, and signs to ask her what she wants to do. The next day, James, Mama, and James's stepdad, Ernest, head to Wally's house as James and Mama suspect that Wally is behind the robbery. They have Heather at gunpoint. When Wally denies any involvement, James angrily reveals that the pie box in Barney's bag contains 3 kilos of pure cornstarch. Following Mama's orders, James takes a tied-up Wally to the gas station to check the surveillance tapes, and Ernest shoots Heather. While James, Wally, and Mama are in the office, Ernest asks Jody if she has any useful information. After she tells him that she has nothing because everything happened so fast, he pays her to be blind and deaf to whatever she sees and hears while they're there. Ernest goes to fill up their car and tells Jody that Pump 2 is not taking his card. Jody informs him that Pump 2 only accepts cash and 2 and 4 don't take card transactions since she started working there. So it's been like that for a year. Ernest asks Jody how much a gallon of gas is, and she says it's $2.85. When he tests pumping out $4.27 on Pump 2, he discovers that the pumps are rigged to pump out 20 cents a gallon less than they're supposed to. Through this scheme, he estimates that Wally is earning $48 an hour and over $4,000 a week in cash on a high-traffic 12-hour day. Ernest immediately informs Mama and James about how Wally is stealing from them, prompting Mama to stab Wally's hand so hard that her knife went through the table. Pam Grier don't play. While checking the surveillance tape from the camera behind the counter, James, Mama, and Ernest see Jody secretly alerting Eddie with her foot. Ernest goes out to slap Jody so hard, her career outside this movie doesn't flourish. They wrestle while James watches. Meanwhile, Wally pepper sprays Mama. Jody and Wally separately manage to escape, but Ernest and James catch them respectively. Jody got lassoed, y'all. James receives a call from Leroy, a man he knows who is selling a teal Camry. Leroy tells him that an early 20s Puerto Rican guy with short hair and a scar over his eye bought his Camry around 2 p.m. He noticed that one of the bills had blood on it, and since he knew that they got robbed, he thought it might be connected. He adds that the buyer mentioned that he's leaving town and sends James the buyer's address on the bill of sale. Jody is horrified when she hears Eddie's address. When James asks Wally if Jody has a boyfriend, Wally says her boyfriend is Mexican. James deduces that it's the same guy and that they planned the robbery together. When he asks Jody if Wally told her about the drugs, Wally denies telling her. James then kills Wally in front of Jody. It's no longer my wife and kids, just wife and kids. James puts Wally's body in his trunk, planning to drop it in the lake after he retrieves their money and drugs and kills Eddie. He instructs Ernest to take Mama to the cabin and to torture Jody if Eddie doesn't have their stuff. As Eddie prepares to leave, James arrives at his apartment, introducing himself as Lil Nas X's bro, and tells him that he might let Jody live if he tells him where his drugs and money are. Eddie points at where they are and grabs his gun when James turns his head. James then shoots him, and he falls out of a window and into a dumpster. Not the little Puerto Rican. James calls Ernest to inform him that Eddie is dead and he got their money back, but the box contains mini pies, not drugs. Confused since the box was marked with a red X and wasn't opened, he drives to the cabin intending to ask Jody about it. When Ernest says Jody threw up in the trunk, Mama guesses that she got a little cream pie baking inside of her. While Mama's touching Jody's stomach, Ernest tells Jody that Eddie is dead and James got their money back. When he asks what happened to the drugs, Jody says she knows nothing. Mama then orders Jody to get her a switch of a tree barefoot and gives her 50 lashings using that switch. Black mamas don't play. Eddie miraculously survives and awakens in a landfill. Tony arrives to deliver pizza to the landfill attendant.
So tell me, how fucking hungry are you?
Eddie grabs his gun and crawls to her car's trunk. When Tony gets back to the pizza restaurant, she is horrified to find Eddie in her trunk. She brings him inside and Eddie stops the restaurant owner, Mario, from calling an ambulance because that would easily cost $100,000 in America. Eddie asks for some cellophane and a first aid kit instead. Although Eddie has wrapped up his wound, Mario convinces him to allow him to call an ambulance because he's struggling to move. When Tony complains that her next delivery is far, Mario tells her that it's the same customer who called for a delivery at a morgue the night before. She shares that earlier, the same Foyne customer had her delivered to Walker Gas and Food Mart, but nobody was there when she arrived. Hearing this, Eddie asks what they look like. She tells him that they look like black cowboys, which matches James. Armed with a gun and a knife, Eddie takes Tony's car to deliver the pizza himself. Eddie gives the pizza to James, who doesn't recognize him because he is keeping his head down. While Ernest and Mama have some pizza, James tells them that he left the money in the car and shows them the pie box with the drugs. He shares that when he drove back to Wally's house to get Heather's corpse so he could dump her into the lake too. He was shocked to find the house smelling like a home-cooked meal and had music playing. With the pie box with drugs on a table, Heather happily said, "We did it, baby," while carrying a cake with 2 plane tickets to the Bahamas on it before realizing it was James. James then fatally shot her. Since he knew Wally wasn't that smart and the only people who knew about the setup were him, Barney, Mama, and Ernest, he deduced that Ernest was the one behind it. This was then confirmed by the plane tickets that had Heather's and Ernest's names on them. Ernest just really loved Heather's juicy cantaloupes. James signs to Mama that her husband Ernest is a liar and a cheater, As it turns out, when Ernest was supposed to shoot Heather, he just shot at the wall. While Ernest is trying to de-escalate and James is talking over him, Ernest notices that the door is opening. He tells James about it and grabs his gun to shoot at whoever is at the door. But James shoots Ernest, whose bullet lands on James's side. Eddie appears and fatally shoots Mama in the head. Killing Jackie Brown is diabolical. Eddie and James fight. James corners Eddie, who then stabs him thrice and slices his cheek open. James retaliates by knocking him to the floor and stepping on his wound. Eddie stabs his lower half, prompting James to fall, with his face landing on Eddie's knife, resulting in his death. Eddie finds Jody, and they both drive away in James's car. After Jody realizes that the bag of money is there, Eddie receives a message from Romeo, who tells him to turn the radio on. Hearing Jody's song playing, Jody tells Eddie that the song is about him and sings it for him when he asks her to. They both tear up, and she reaches to hold his hand. When I tell you, y'all, this was one of the better movies on Tubi, and you should see it. The acting and writing were way better than the usual slop we see on Tubi.
If you like this video, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. We got lots more of foolishness on this channel that'll have you hollering. And if you like to watch more, just click here or here.